Hello everybody, so this is a quick video to show you how to do a t-test in Excel. So what I've done here is I've set up two different sets of conditions so I can show you two different data sets. So I've got the first one up here where we've got quite a big spread of data in the second condition, but there's obviously quite a big difference between the averages within the data set. And the second one, we have less of an average. So I've already worked out the average and standard deviation, plotted them in the graph. So what we need to do now is we need to see whether this difference between here and here in this experiment we've done, and if there's any difference here between these two data sets. And what we're going to do is, because there is two groups of data, we're going to do a t-test. I'm going to use Excel to do this, as I've said, and all we're going to do is do a really simple formula. So I've written t-test here, and I want to populate this cell here with the p-value of the t-test. So the first thing to do to make my formula, I'm going to press equals, and then I'm going to type t dot test. Now this pops up beforehand because obviously the program knows that this is the only test that has these words in it. So you can either double click on that, or if you just press tab, that will populate this bar up here and give you the start of the function. So the first thing we need to do is we need to put the first array of data in. So this is this information for condition 1. So we're going to put that in there. It's prompting us for what we need to do. So it says array 1 and then comma. So we're going to put a comma in. Array 2 is the data for the second condition. We don't need the averages or the standard deviations. We just use those to plot the graph so we can visually see what's going off as well as relying on the statistics. And again, we need to put a comma on. Then it's asking us if we want a one-tailed distribution or a two-tailed distribution. So I'd like a two-tailed distribution because I'd like to look at both ends, both tails of that normal distribution. So I'm going to put 2 for that, and then a comma. And then the final thing it wants me to know is the type. So is it a paired t-test, 2 samples equal variance, or 2 samples unequal variance? Now, if the samples were paired, it would be something like heart rate before and after exercise, and you'd have patient 1, patient 2, patient 3, patient 4, and in which case these two pieces of information would be paired. If you've measured the same thing, the same units, the same actual variable, but in 2 samples that aren't paired, then you have 2 sample equal variance. So in this example, we might have number of colony forming units, number of bacteria in 2 different environments. You've measured the same thing, so you've got the same amount of variance, like just from your experimental method, but they aren't paired. And 2 samples unequal variance is if you're measuring 2 things and they weren't, the variation within them weren't the same. So for example, you might be comparing heart rate to blood pressure. So I'm going to say that we want the second one here, so I can either click on it, double click on it, or I can just type in 2, and then that's the end of this formulae. So I'm going to put the last bracket in, and then to finish it off, I'm just going to press return, and then that will return the t-test. Now this is a p-value, so we're looking for a p-value to be less than 0.05 at the very minimum, and obviously that's more than that. So what's this telling us is that there's no difference, no statistical difference between these two conditions. So even though there's a big difference in the averages, because there's so much variation, especially within this second condition, there's actually no statistical difference between the two. So we can do the same thing for the second one. So you can either type in the formulae again, or because the data's laid out the same, you can be quite savvy here and just copy it across. So you can either right click, go cut, click it onto here and then press paste, or if you go Control C for copy, click here, Control V, it will pop that across for you. And once that's done, if I click up here, it'll show me where the data, just so I can double check. So it's just transferred it across really. So we've done condition 1, condition 2 as my array 1 and my array 2, and I've got my two-tailed distribution, and again it's non-paired but equal variance. Just press return or exit to get out of that little menu. So you can see here now the p-value is less than 0.05. It's quite a lot less actually, which shows that there's a statistical difference between these two conditions. If you were reporting this, you could put p is less than 0.05, but actually that's doing your statistics injustice. So what you could do is it just needs to be accurate in the less than. So you could put less than 0.05 and pop another 0 in there, and that's telling you that it's that significant difference is you can be really confident about that difference because it's this only a 1 in 200 chance that that's occurred due to chance, and that's obviously a really high percentage, so it's very, very, very unlikely. So there you go. That's how you do a t-test in Excel. I hope that has been helpful.